It's a great panel with some really terrific people who have seen very many different aspects of the business over the years. And our moderator is somebody who knows this incredibly well. Andy Karofsky runs an agency called SKMG. They're a consultancy in digital and distribution for the television industry. They have a lot of clients across the entire industry. He's worked as the VP of programming, including creating a TV Everywhere program and also acquiring content for Dish platform, and before that he was at the Hallmark channel working on distribution, TV Everywhere products and programming deals as well. He has a broad knowledge of the industry that he brings here, and this panel is really insightful with regards to where the industry is and where it's going to be heading over the next 5-10 years. So Andy, take it away.
Thanks, Evan. Just real quickly, thanks, Evan, and hats off to Dolly Wolf, who puts this whole thing together. I've been fortunate to have known Dolly for a very long time. We worked decades ago together, it seems like. But it's no surprise to me that I sit up here today. It's a surprise that I'm up here today, but not that Dolly has put this whole thing together and done such an incredible job with it. I think we're a little bit shorter on time than we thought we would be, so I prefer just to jump in and get going, if that's all right with the rest of the group here. You're in for a treat. You have 4 people up here that have incredible backgrounds, very diverse, all unique in their own way, and I think you're going to get a lot out of this. I really hope you do. The title of it is Creative Technology Innovation in the Evolving Job Opportunities, and I think the title of it is pretty spot on for the industry that we're in. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an industry that has been more impacted by Moore's Law than the industry we're in, and it's through the own innovation of the industry, and it's also through technology development that has gone on outside the industry, things that companies that haven't traditionally been in our industry, such as Apple, which is now very tied to our industry, have moved things quite along. I'm going to start kind of broad with some general questions just to get things going with the panel up here, and then we'll narrow it down a bit. And then at the end, hopefully have some time for question and answer. So just to get us started, as you foreknow, and we talked about on the phone, our industry has gone through a tremendous amount of change over the last 10 years in particular, and it's been, I think, a fortunate time to have been a part of it. But I think it would be interesting for the audience to hear from each of you, what types of jobs do you see that are in the industry today that were not there, say, 5 years ago? And then looking forward, as you see what's evolving in the industry, what types of jobs do you think will exist in the industry that possibly aren't there today? One before you want to get us rolling?
Yeah, sure. That's an interesting question. I know we recently at Scripps hired a data scientist. I didn't think we'd be saying that in this industry years ago. We needed a data scientist. But you know, it's all about the consumer experience, right? And all the technologies is allowing us to get closer and closer to the individual as the consumer, and that means that to better serve them, we need more information about who they are and what they're interested in, and bringing that all together. All these digital platforms give us more data than we ever had access to on some of the more traditional channels. So really, the ability to collect that data, mine that data, and kind of tighten that loop between data to insights to action has really become very important for Scripps to be successful moving forward. So I would say data scientist I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, I don't think we could reiterate that enough. Analytics is huge at our company, and being able to understand the data, but then also how do you communicate that back to your peers, back to the people that you work with in a meaningful way? So how do you draw insights from that? And then I think also, you know, traditional job functions will remain. You'll have ad sales, you'll have marketing, you'll have distribution. But what really changed in the last 3-5+ years is you had digital ad sales, digital marketing, digital distribution. So that just continues to evolve, and you need to have an understanding of how the business traditionally worked and how it should work moving forward.
Yes, I'm not really from the industry, so a slight different angle. But what I think there are two interesting things. First, there's so much technology that just got into the industry. So I think what we're going to see is a ton. So right now what's happening is some integration between the technology side and the creative side. So, you know, data scientist is something that comes out of that integration. Now we can actually measure how good our creative is, right? But I think once these technologists actually start feeling more and more comfortable, they'll actually create more jobs that we don't even think about right now. So I think 5, 10 years from now, we'll have people do stuff that we don't know even how to call. And the second thing is, let me put it that way, I think, you know what, never mind.
So I think, again, not really coming from the industry, interestingly, I actually started in a defense company doing electronic warfare. So that's pretty different to anything anybody will ever do in video. And pretty much spent most of my life in mobile. I think the things that are changing are mobile is really important as a technology in this industry and what it means, which means that Wi-Fi becomes a really big deal in this industry, and how you deliver the content that maybe many of you will create to the consumer, to the person watching it in a quality way, which means the whole mobile application experience becomes really important. And it's not just about producing video, it's producing all of the other components that the data analytics, the data scientists create to actually deliver and engage more with the consumer that's watching the video program, are the things that really are changing now and are going to continue to grow as part of that industry.
And as you spoke, Jonathan, too, I was thinking about, I'm sorry. I was thinking that we had a conversation at Scripps the other day about how really it behooves the business people to lean a little bit more into the technology, right? I think that you need to be conversant in both is the issue. You can't be just a technologist, I think, in this business, nor can you be just a business person and ignore the technology. I think you have to be conversant in both sides of the business. The technology is going to affect how the creatives tell their story. Right, the technology is going to affect how the business models evolve, and likewise, the technologists need to understand what the business challenges are. Otherwise, it's just technology for technology's sake. If you're not solving a problem, right, and solving that problem, if you don't add value to the business. So, for everyone in this room, I think you have to get conversant on both sides of that equation.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to add just one more thing. Part of your question is about future jobs, and I think we should all just be honest. We don't know. And one of the examples is with social media. A handful of years ago, nobody knew what to do with that, but we knew we should be involved. And one of our executive assistants asked if she could launch a Facebook page. And she launched it, and that was the very first one for the network. And a few years later, she was considered our head of social media and has moved on to do bigger and better things. But because she raised her hand and she saw that there was a trend and something that, you know, a void that she could fill, it presented a huge opportunity for her. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Great point.
I think the point that you make about how you blend creativity and technology together, to me, that's one of the greatest changes I've seen in the industry. I feel like when I first got into it, you had at one end of the spectrum those that were creative, right, that might be doing marketing or programming or developing TV shows, and at the other end, you had the guys in broadcast operations, right, and they didn't understand the language the others spoke whatsoever. And I think now today it has changed a lot, right? You're expected to be creative. Well, I shouldn't say expected, but those that I see being most successful are able to blend those two things. I think that the 2 points you make are really important. I'm curious if Yaniv or Jonathan, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, literally this week, we as a company have just decided to sponsor a NASCAR, because how many people in the room know who Aris is? That was pretty much my bet. How many people consume and use high-speed data? I guarantee you use our product. You probably use one of our cable modems or technology gets there. Or how many of you watch TV? Even if it's on Netflix or something like that, right? You're probably using video processing technology that Aris created and has won 19 Emmys for. So It's the company that nobody has ever heard of because a lot of our business came from Motorola when it was acquired into Aris. But to that point, here's what happens. We sponsored NASCAR, and now we're trying to figure out what to do with NASCAR. So I have, as the technical marketing director, a great conversation with a production crew who do sports racing filming because I want to get 4K content because that's the next generation of content. So we're sat there technically and creatively trying to figure out how we can put together the best of two video experiences. And the guys on the other end of the phone that we're talking to about their creative production team understand the 4K technology. They understand what it takes to shoot video in 4K. It's not like taking HD video. It's more like what happened with 3D, where you can do a great 3D program, you can do a really bad 3D program that actually makes people feel really sick when you sit and watch it because of how you shoot. So exactly to that point, you've got to learn the technology, or at least have a comprehension of the technology that you are going to be given to use to even produce and film video content. And I think that's where those things start to blend together.
Yeah, and to add on that, I think first, think about what you needed in the 50s or 70s to create a TV show. The amount of technology, relatively to the existing technology back then, and the amount of resource you needed, you didn't really, so you had to be creative, but even if there was someone more creative than you, then they probably didn't have that resource. Right now, everybody can create a TV show, almost everybody, on the technical side. So if you're not creative, if you're like a top person on NBC, and you're not creative, someone else is going to create a much, much better show than you. 10 people are going to do that, and then you'll be out. So, the barrier to entry on the technology side, is lower. Plus, on top of that, every day there's a new technology. So you have to be up to date on that, and you have to know how to use it. And knowing how to use it is not a script. You have to be creative in order to use it in the best way possible, or in a way that's interesting. So I think that's...
I think it's a great point. All of them are. Obviously we talked quickly about how jobs have changed, right? But to turn it a bit directly to the four of you, I think it would be interesting for the audience to hear how your own career has changed, right? And I'm not talking about necessarily how you climbed the ladder, but as you went about, right, you started completely in one industry, Jonathan, and ended up in another, but there were some correlations there. And Tammy, your story alone is absolutely fascinating. I'm going to pick on you first and ask you to talk about it. But I think the point of it is to know that where you start may have nothing to do with where you get to in 10 years or 20 years, and don't feel pegged to it, right? And I think you'll hear 4 quick stories about kind of their career paths, and I hope you take that bit away from it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we talked a lot over lunch about trying to think about your career in the sense of opening doors as opposed to closing them, right, or getting too funneled vision, because we just talked about the fact that there are careers that are going to be there in 5, 10 years that we don't even know about today. So how do you know if you're going to be interested in that or not? So really you're just trying to build your skill set. You're trying to build your bag, right? And so my background is I'm an English major. I thought I wanted to be a reporter when I grew up, and I actually never ended up reporting at all because I interviewed and they had this management track and they thought it would be interesting and I would work well in it. And oh, by the way, it paid a little bit more. So I went down that path and did some ad sales and some production operations. I've been in several industries. I kind of stumbled upon this one, to be honest with you, in that after Knight Ridder newspapers for a while, I went to work at Bain & Company and Motorola, and then ended up getting a call from Turner Broadcasting, and they were trying to get CNN on cell phones, get the little news clips going on wireless devices, and that's really what led me to the media industry, was the background at Motorola, where I'm not a technology major, I'm not an engineer, but we talked a lot about just being curious about what other people do, and what I found at Motorola was they had just brilliant engineers who loved to talk about what they did. Many people didn't ask them the details, but if you asked them, they would spend hours telling you about what they did, and I just thought it was fascinating. And so just that natural curiosity. One of the patterns, if I look back, seems to be having some grounding in a piece of my new job, and then lack of knowledge in the new piece. So one foot was on steady ground, the other foot was really on very shaky ground, but there was a natural curiosity. And my experience has just been that people will help you figure it out, that none of the jobs I've had in the various industries have turned out to be rocket science. You're all smart people, you can figure it out, and embrace your colleagues who really want you to succeed and want you to learn. And I think if you're curious and you reach out, people will help you. So I just say, try to open doors, not close doors on yourself. Fill your bag, your bag of tricks, because you just don't know what next door is going to open for you.
So I've worked in television my whole career at the same company, which is rare. But I think in light of opening more doors, also being optimistic, our industry has seen a tremendous amount of change, and that's a lot of gloom and doom for most people. Truly, so if you're the person who's open-minded, wants to problem solve, okay, so this is happening, but what can we do to change it? You will benefit, and that's where I put myself in my career, and it's led to, my job description is constantly changing because as something new comes out, that's what I'm working on and I'm trying to figure out. So
I started as an engineer and realized soon after I was writing algorithms for Intel, we were developing chipsets for mobile phones, and realized that sitting in front of a computer 12 hours a day just writing to myself was not going to be good enough. So I moved, 2 years in, I moved and started a company with a couple of investors, then came to the US, went to business school, worked for a management consulting company, figured out that corporate America is also not for me probably, and now started another company about a year ago. And what I take from my career is, focus on skills, don't focus on knowledge. I mean, knowledge will change all the time. You'll start to learn stuff or study stuff, and it will become obsolete by the time you finish. Also, it's there for everybody. I mean, you have everything in the internet. Every new industry, every new company you want to learn or you want to be part of, every new technology, in 5 minutes, you know the core, and in probably an hour more, you know more or less what you need to know. That's my takeaway.
So I've worked for 4 companies. I worked for a defense company in the United Kingdom. I started with Motorola in the United Kingdom doing first generation mobile telephony. We're now at 4th generation, so I've seen all 4 generations. I've worked in the areas of wireless data. I've worked in bringing new experiences to mobile phones. Actually, probably created the first camera phone. Anybody not have a camera phone in the room? It still amazes me when my company said you'll never sell 1 million camera phones. It's one of those things where you have to challenge people. I effectively worked there for 25 years. I moved into a corporate research environment. I moved into, which was opportunistic. I moved into doing video and the TV business. I've only been in this business 4 or 5 years, but quite frankly, it's just data. All you're doing is moving data. It just happens to be visual versus text or a phone call. Every phone now is just an application environment. The set-top box will be an application environment. So it's extrapolating what you learn and moving it into the next opportunity, the next business. And now I work for a company called Aris, which acquired part of that Motorola business. And my job now is really trying to articulate the geeky engineers that if I put them in a room here and they started to explain to you how 4K signaling worked, after about 30 seconds, you would be numb with the algorithms, unless you're really into mathematical algorithms. But at the end of the day, my job, even as an engineer, is to clarify that, simplify it, and try to help people understand, why is it important to this audience? Why is 4K important to you? What's it going to make a difference to you? And I think, as part of that, the doom and gloom of this industry is wrong. Video is being consumed more hours per week by everybody in the world. They want to consume more hours of video. So there's huge opportunity to do that. The way that TV is experienced as part of that video consumption is going to change. And I think that's what's exciting, is how does it change from me delivering technology as much as how do you create those video programs to really deliver there. So that to me is my next era of opportunity and job, I think.
Yaniv, I think Jonathan just called you a geek. I'm not sure. But you're the only one up here in a leather jacket, so it's really not working. I'm confused.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm really trying.
To make those types of changes in your career, and you all did it, right? The key thing that sticks out for me is risk, right? When you get in a job and you're good at it, that's really safe, right? You can show up every day, get it done right, collect your 3% bonus every year, and keep going, right? And some people are great that way. I get the sense, though, in listening to your career paths, that is not the four of you. But it means you have to definitely have a high tolerance to risk, personally. So I would ask you to share with the audience an example, if you can, of maybe the greatest risk you have ever taken in your career. Good or bad result. I'm kind of hoping there are some bad ones in there just to keep it interesting. And along with that, how has your tolerance for risk changed over time? Anyone want to grab that one?
Yeah, that's a great one. Tolerance risk over time. Yeah, so you do have to know yourself, obviously. Being self-aware is probably a big key to any successful career, or probably life in general. So I have a fairly decent risk tolerance, but not enough to be an entrepreneur. I know where to draw the line. So I will take chances, but they're usually within corporate America, because I do like knowing that paycheck will be there every week. So that's kind of my risk profile. I'm probably taking one of the greatest risks of my career right now, actually. Scripps created a new position, EVP of Digital. I just landed in that position of January of this year. We're trying to bring together all the disparate digital activities that we have across the company under one form of leadership and kind of move that forward. It's a business that's struggling right now, trying to figure out how to monetize, but has tremendous potential. It's very high profile within the company. Even though it's a very small percentage of the revenue, it gets a lot of conversation. And, it's the future, the millennial viewer, the next gen is riding on this. So there's just a lot of hype around it. For me, in some ways, it's just another business. It's about execution. It's about vision. It's about strategy. And we'll get there. But because of its high profile nature and the newness of it all, it is probably the riskiest position I've taken to date. So TBD, whether I'm successful or not. Just read the trade, you'll find out if I still have a job this time
We'll
next
ask the same question next year, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how I would answer it. The type of projects that I work on in digital distribution, I've been wrong, and my team has been wrong, and I think that in some ways it's helped me grow, but the biggest thing is admitting, okay, we thought we were going to generate X millions of dollars, and this whole entire thing is wrong. We were completely wrong, and you need to own it and figure out how you can learn from it. And those projects, which it comes up in conversation all the time, Project X, remember that failure? We are not doing that part of it again, and this is why. So I guess that's the way I'll respond.
So I think, maybe I don't think I'm taking much more risk than you guys. And this is, I just think about it in a different way. So, what is risk really? You have kind of like what you think is going to be, if you talk about income, right? Getting that regular paycheck. You think that's how my mean income is going to look like, right? I'm going to get promoted a little bit. So if you're in corporate America, that happens more or less like this. If you're an entrepreneur, it's like just like this. But the mean kind of stays the same. And the only thing I think you need to make sure is that every time the next thing you do kind of builds on what you just did before and kind of will add those skills and make you a better professional or a better person. So that's kind of, it's a little bit of fluff, but that's the way I think about it. Mm-hmm. And the other dimension of this is, I think the bigger risk for me is waking up in the morning and hating what I do, which I actually had. So I think the riskiest decision I've had is go work in management consulting, which completely, I kind of wrote off a year and a half of my life. I learned a ton. I'm being extreme. I learned a ton. I worked with extremely smart people, did some interesting stuff, but it wasn't, I can't say I even had one project that I was really passionate about. Mm-hmm. So, that's how I view risk. So it's slightly different.
Makes sense.
So that's interesting because it's like, yeah, it's challenging to kind of define the riskiest job I ever took or the riskiest role. Probably the first one was my first job. I had no idea what it was about because they couldn't tell you what it was about before you walked in the door. But it was a really small team, and for me, I learned every aspect of trying to do work in a big company. And it kind of is interesting that now I look back on it, and the irony is I actually wanted to go to medical school. And I just wasn't smart enough to go to medical school, was what it really boiled down to. So I became an engineer. I mean, it's true. You had to get certain level grades in the United Kingdom to get into medical school. If you didn't get them, you didn't go there. So I went into engineering, which was kind of like, here, I actually picked the engineering school in August and started in the company I worked at because I interned, which for all of you, you should be looking to intern in September, and went to college in October to do engineering. And I've never looked back. And I think the actual riskiest part of a job for me is when I'm bored. I am the most dangerous person to myself when I'm bored. If I am not having fun, having a blast, pretty much traveling all over the place, and just really trying to do things differently, then quite frankly, I get bored. And my boss knows that that is a risk, because I'm liable to say something totally out of line to her boss or one of the other executives, which totally freaks her out, because she's got to the point of realizing now, it's like, well, I'll just move on to the next job or the next role. It's okay, because you get to a point where you've done enough things and you've seen enough things that I think you become more comfortable. I mean, Tammy moving into the EVP role and doing digital, she's not really taking a big risk because she's very comfortable because she knows what she's totally capable of doing and delivering that. It's a challenge to get the rest of the people in the room to believe it, but not a risk for Tammy doing it because I know Tammy well enough to know that.
And Jonathan, you should know you got in the right industry then, because even though you're not a doctor, you could play one on TV if you wanted to.
Yeah, or you should just apply to medical school in the U.S. as opposed to the U.K.
Actually, I will have you know it's actually easier in the U.K. than it is in the U.S. because you have to do a degree here first and then go to medical school. Oh. My sister is a doctor, my brother-in-law, and they both went straight to medical school. It's actually easier.
Fair enough.
Which is really embarrassing because they did it, not me.
So we have a couple minutes left and enough time. I think we need to leave 5 minutes for Q&A, so actually 1 minute left. But Jonathan, you touched on it, right, and the importance of being happy in what you do, right, and you can do it, right? I see a lot of people doing it, and I don't want to speak for everyone up here, but when I've had the phone conversations with you and I have sat across the table from Tammy in discussions, these are four people that it looks to me like they really enjoy what you do, and you guys are very fortunate because there are a lot of people out there and you work with them every day that don't. One piece of advice for everyone sitting out here for them to think about today, tomorrow, 20 years from now, about how do you keep that going?
Just don't stop if you're not happy, that's it. It's not like I landed my first job and was happy. I just, I knew there should be something better. That's it.
And even if you're in a role and it's not really doing it for you in terms of the passion or whatever, at most companies you can still explore outside of that role, committees, groups of people that you know are working on things. I've never had anyone reject me when I said, hey, yeah, I know you guys are working on that. Tell me about it. What are you doing? Do you need any help? So even if you're quote unquote stuck in a role temporarily, just get out of your office and walk around and find out what other people are doing. You can do a lot of different jobs in a company that aren't on your job description, right? And then that can lead you to the next opportunity where you are passionate about something. So don't just sit there and be stuck. Either get out of that job or within that role, find other ways to do things that do get you jazzed during the day.
I mean, I think there are two things I would say. When I did my internship, I know they will get you to go get coffee. When I was doing my internship, they would make you photocopy. I learned the trick. Here's the trick to actually make it more interesting. Get it done really, really fast so that they got to give you something else to do. And after a while, they get fed up every 5 minutes of trying to give you a new photocopy job. So they actually give you something more interesting that lasts a few hours. So now it's more challenging, it becomes more interesting. Or the second thing is, and it happened to my career at one point, you have to, I tell you, there are bad sides of a career. I have been through times, and Tammy will notice too, where we have closed down businesses and you have to sit there and tell people that are your friends that there is no longer a role for them and we're letting you go. And after a while, they do this 2-3 times every 6 months. It's not fun. And I actually was kind of in that scenario myself and just took another role that was kind of maybe not the great, more like a consulting role, the consulting role, but inside the company. It was kind of boring, but I could do it 9 to 5, and I used the rest of the time to go explore, find other things, and walk straight into a great, really interesting role, and then kind of, again, never look back and jump my career. Those are kind of the things you've got to think about. Look outside of the industry. Like Evan said, go and volunteer for something. You may find something new that leverages your skills, but you're given the time to do that in a sense because you can kind of do this other job comfortably.
That's great. I just got the signal for 5 minutes for Q&A, so I guess we open up to the audience. Any questions for these four? It's a great question. It actually is one of the questions I had, so thank you for asking it. I'll let you guys answer it, right? I mean, it's a fantastic question today.
I mean, those are the people that get ahead in the various teams. Everyone you work with, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, you can problem solve, you can think creatively, that's who people want to listen to and have on their team with them. So absolutely, I think that those two worlds blend.
It depends on the organization. Some have very programs, it's structured that way. Others, to your point, it's just in your day job. Just think about things that look for gaps, look for opportunities, look for holes, look for problems to solve, and the company is open to you solving those, and often, to your point, those are the people that move ahead. So they can be structured or unstructured, but you should always be seeking out those types of things.
I mean, I think so. I mean, I worked at a company and in a team that had an entrepreneurial organization, but some of the best products that came out of Motorola were actually done by teams of 4 or 5 people, quietly sat in the corner, that created something that when they showed it to somebody, they got the value of it. I mean, how many of you owned a Razor phone?
Love it.
That was exactly the reason that came about. 4 or 5 engineers sat in the quiet corner and said, we can build a phone this thin. They weren't assigned it as an entrepreneurial task until people saw the value of it, but they had the mindset to say, that's one thing that we're going to charge and drive and do. So I think you've got to drive it. If you've got that spirit, it will bubble up and somebody will see the value of it. But they won't always. And you have to go back again. It's kind of like you fail and you go back again. I have the wall of failed products that I've worked on, but they're inspirational. That's the point for me. They're totally inspirational.
I think, and with the entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's always room for, and this is something I see from the outside when I come and deal with these big companies. So there's always room for entrepreneurship. So what's the problem with big companies? The bar changes. If you go to the president of A&E, you need to present to him something that will actually move the needle, right? So some of the people in the organization will be more tolerant and say, hey, okay, let's let him run with it a little bit more once he reaches that point. In other organization, the point will be higher. But I think if you know that you're going to get things done, and this is interesting, and you're going to put some effort into it without hurting the 99% of other stuff that you're doing, then you're going to get somewhere almost in any organization.
Time for one more question.
I wish I had the problem of too many talented people knocking on my door. No, I think there's still room for plenty of folks. Yeah, I haven't seen that trend. I don't know.
No, I think what we've seen is if you're too traditional, we lose people, but we're looking for new people, new talent all the time, new ways of thinking.
I have a job that's an opening. I've been searching for somebody for 9 months because I can't find the right person. So hang on. She might change her mind. It's in Horsham, Pennsylvania.
It's not as bad as it sounds.
It's a technical marketing role, and it's like finding somebody that's got both skills for me is a tough challenge. I mean, there are few people that can take technology and articulate it simply, but that's a creative issue as much as a technical one.
We got the official stop sign. Thank you, you four. Really appreciate it.